If passed, the new bill would be the biggest emergency spending measure in U.S. history, sending aid to state and local governments, health systems, and a range of other initiatives. The relief package would also send a second round of stimulus checks to millions of Americans and include more funding for the Postal Service. However, according to the Washington Post, Republicans have already rejected the bill before even seeing it, describing it as a liberal wish list.
When you look at the first 4 months of this year, would you describe the government's and the administration's response as a success or a failure?
I believe we could have done better. I believe there are critical steps that we did not take in time. Time is running out because the virus is still spreading everywhere. People are getting restless to leave their homes.
Is my concern that if some areas, cities, states, or what have you, jump over those various checkpoints and prematurely open up without having the capability of being able to respond effectively and efficiently, my concern is that we will start to see little spikes that might turn into outbreaks. So therefore, I have been being very clear in my message to try to the best extent possible to go by the guidelines, which have been very well thought out and very well delineated.
Dr. Fauci yesterday was a little cautious on reopening the economy too soon. Do you share his concern?
About reopening what?
Reopening the economy too soon, some states.
Look, he wants to play all sides of the equation. I was surprised by his answer, actually, because, it's just, to me, it's not an acceptable answer.
I just want to make something clear. It's very important. Vaccine or no vaccine, we're back.
I'm Barry Gordon.
And I'm Andre Coleman.
This is NewsRap, live at 5.
Home edition. Hit it. Yeah,
I know. It's just every day he just. I mean, I'm literally getting nauseous now when I watch.
Well,
I hate to say that, but
later.
I really am. I hope it's not a version of coronavirus because I am feeling really sick every time I watch something like that. I mean, vaccine or no vaccine, we're back. I mean, okay, testing is overrated. I mean, let me ask you something, Dre. I've been thinking about this when I watch these press conferences. What do you do? Do you have to bite your tongue as a reporter? I mean, I have the fantasy that some reporter is just going to say, you just sound like an idiot. You know, you're making no sense. Nothing you're saying is true. And you just sound like a fool. I mean, how do you deal with that as a reporter?
You ask the question, you ask him to respond to the people who think he's an idiot. And
how do you do that? Because I haven't heard them do that. I have not heard them do that.
You know what? I would do it this way. I would just say, Mr. President, there's a large number of people who think you are ignorant on this topic, and they think that you sound uneducated. Respond to that. That's how you address it. You take the question straight to him. Now, he's going to cry and whine, and he's going to insult you and say that you're not real news, whatever. He's not a real president either. But, you talk. It's a legitimate question.
I think it is a legitimate question. And I almost feel that at some point, reporters have to say, we're not really getting any information here.
I agree. And that's
we're not getting any news here. So why don't we just leave? We don't have to sit in the chairs, with masks on. And when there's something to really find out, let's find it out a different way,
That's the other thing that you say to the White House is, look, you guys are not giving us any information at all. Clearly, we are not back yet. We're almost at 90,000 deaths, and the projection just went up again today.
Did it? I didn't see that.
Well, now they said that The claim now is that there will be 100,000 deaths by June 1. I don't really consider that.
Wow. And before it was like 140 by August 4th.
Right. Which means on the current trajectory of about 2,000 deaths a day, do the math times 30, and you'll see that we're going to probably be we're going to be probably where they say we are in August, sometime in the early July, end of June, if the numbers just hold at this.
It's slowing down a little, right?
The cases,
but that's because of what we're doing.
Right.
And once we stop doing it, Trump keeps saying he really thinks that somehow there's an expiration date on the virus. It's like when you get something at the store, ultimately you can't use it anymore. Right. And he's kind of thinking that the virus is going to go away on its own. It's just going to, as he says, disappear. What evidence exists for that?
Well, the chances of it just disappearing are greater when everybody stays home.
Of course.
But now that
the
things
virus,
are reopening,
the sniper, right? It's still out there. As soon as you walk out, it's out there.
With a loaded weapon.
With a loaded weapon.
And now as people begin to go back out, I think Texas today reported its highest number of cases in one day ever. So
really,
you start to hear.
How is Georgia doing? Is anyone monitoring Georgia?
I have not been.
Because they're the ones that have really been kind of, throwing caution to the wind. And it would be interesting to know how they're doing. There's also, the Swedish experiment, right? Which was that they really never went into a lockdown, except that people themselves locked themselves down. And so we don't really know whether that experiment is working in terms of building what they call herd immunity. How is that all working?
What we need at this point, since obviously now there is a rush to lift orders, and Wisconsin had theirs lifted by the state Supreme Court, is there should be a nationwide education campaign.
Yeah.
People have to be educated at this point. Tests are being used as a crutch. Hey, if you get tested at 5:00, that does not mean that you are not infected at 6:00. It just means at 5:00 you weren't infected. So, but people keep going. I've been tested, like it's a card that's going to go forever kind of thing.
Well, it's even worse than that, because sometimes the test that they're talking about is just a temperature check.
Yep.
Well, if you're asymptomatic, you don't have a high temperature. So how is that going to help? And they keep saying, we're going to do temperature checks. Well, whoopee. That just means
because you know what? When I get the flu, I don't get a fever.
Right.
I can full on have the flu and not have a fever.
That's right. I've done that too.
And this thing with so many symptoms that, everybody seems to have a different symptom. I don't know if a temperature check obviously is not the best way to go either, kind of thing. I think right now, in my opinion, we're probably as far as the virus, not the opening, closing, and the orders, probably at the beginning of the middle of the part with the virus.
Yeah.
But I don't think we are at the beginning of the end or the end of the end or anything like that.
I don't think so. And in the meantime, we're seeing such a disparity, even in this state. We're seeing the state say one thing, Pasadena say something else, which we'll get into later after the local brief. What is LA County saying? What is the city of LA saying?
Right.
Everyone is taking a different approach, and it does get confusing because, for example, with us, Pasadena, Altadena, and if they're on a different timetable than we are,
and they are,
what does that mean? So it's so confusing, and that's why the whole thing should have been national from the beginning. There should have been some flexibility, yes, for counties and cities and states, but the flexibility should have always had a floor under it, so that you're always saying, yes, you can start some moves, but you have to meet criteria A, B, C, D, E before you even think about it.
Well, the
And
flexibility.
that's what Cuomo's been doing with the counties in New York. He's been saying, I'm setting a floor. You have to meet that criteria or you don't open.
Well, it's
Period.
like Steve Mermel said last week when they began talking about reopening businesses. His point was, we can be more restrictive than the governor's order, but we can't be more liberal.
Right.
And that's where, with true leadership, we could have had a national order that would have made this, make sense. That would have made this work. That could have led us through this.
Exactly. And detailed guidance from the CDC. I mean, it kind of is rocket science because we haven't done this before. It's true. So yes, we need our best brains and our genius doctors and our genius epidemiologists and all of that. But the steps that had to be taken were not rocket science. Everybody knew what had to happen. There was a pandemic handbook that existed in the Obama administration.
Yeah.
And they said, well, it's not good enough. Well, the only thing that wasn't good enough, apparently, was that it had Obama's name on it.
Well, first they said it didn't exist. First they said he didn't have one.
Right.
Then when they had to admit he had one, they went, well, it's not good enough, and we had two. But if they had two, they weren't following them because the president's answer was there are 15 now and soon they're going to be 0, and it's going to disappear like a miracle.
Sure.
But without a vaccine. Absolutely. If that's what's in the playbook, then what 3-year-old wrote that?
I know. So, folks, we want to invite you in on the conversation. And the best way to do that is through Facebook, because we're live on Facebook. And if you send your comments through Facebook, we'll get them here. And we'll be able to respond. And I hope you're having a good day. Let's take a look at the local brief, shall we?
Let's do
all right.
Local.
This is your local news brief for Friday, May 15th, 2020. Pasadena now reports 662 confirmed COVID-19 cases in the city of Pasadena, with 69 related deaths. The city recently had 4 consecutive days without a virus-related death. Pasadena Public Health Department Director Dr. Ying Go has released an order that allows all retailers in Pasadena to operate under curbside pickup guidelines. The city of Pasadena released a statement opening the Rose Bowl Loop to pedestrians, runners, and cyclists. Guidelines for those visiting the loop can be found on the city's website, cityofpasadena.net. On Tuesday, May 12th, Los Angeles County Public Health Director Dr. Barbara Ferrer said the stay-at-home order would extend through July. Los Angeles County Board Supervisor Catherine Barger clarified that easing the restrictions is important and would be done periodically over the next few months. According to a Pasadena Now article, Barger is quoted as saying, "These decisions will be guided by the latest science and data collected. I'm confident that the more our communities continue to comply, the sooner we can resume normalcy." Pasadena has its own health department and does not have to comply with the LA County Health Department. The Pasadena Public Safety Committee has approved a $1.5 million contract with the State Highway Patrol. The contract would span 5 years, covering both New Year's Eve and New Year's Day policing needs brought on by the Rose Parade. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the fate of the 2021 parade is unknown. Pasadena Police Chief John Perez said in a Pasadena Now article that the Tournament of Roses reimburses the city for law enforcement costs, eliminating any risk associated with the contract. Senator Anthony Portantino's State Bill 805 has advanced to Senate appropriations. The bill would protect school employees from using their sick and vacation times during a natural disaster. It would also protect them from coronavirus impacts. In an official statement, Portantino said, "The idea for this bill originally came about due to the threat of wildfires, but I believe it has become even more important in light of the ongoing pandemic."
Well, what do you think, Dre, of the way Pasadena has been handling this?
You mean the reopening, the response? Which one?
Yeah. Let's go to let's start with the response and then move to the reopening.
I think the response initially, the initial response and acting in order, I think was a good move. Personally, I knew this was serious when they canceled Art Night.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment when I was sitting in front of my computer at home and I went, oh, you know what? It just got real. They just canceled a major event, Art Night, and then you just saw all the dominoes fall from there.
Yeah.
But I think the city has moved into the recovery phase properly. Now, where I think there's been a couple of pratfalls is I didn't think the Rose Bowl loop had to stay closed for 6 weeks. I think everything they did this past Monday, they could have done 2 weeks after it was closed and said, okay, we're going to reopen it. Just like they said now, we're going to reopen it. But if you can't do these things, we're going to slam it shut again. Mm-hmm. So I think the outdoors events, the recreational spaces, there's some leeway there. I don't think any operator, any retail operator is going to make a lot of money doing curbside service. I'll be honest with you. So that may cost people money once you start bringing employees back and you have to pay them, and then the profits you don't make the profits to cover. So
I know there are some restaurants. There are some restaurants that are staying alive that way. For example, Gail's restaurant, no relation. But
I'm not talking about restaurants.
Because restaurants, I think, are staying alive that way.
I'm not talking about restaurants. I'm talking about Vroman's and places like that.
Retail,
that are doing curbside business. The restaurants, I think that's a different animal. And I think, you know what? I think a lot of the restaurant owners are going to have to figure out, and some of them have, obviously, how am I going to make this work when it reopens? Because I don't think everybody's going to flood into everywhere. Now, maybe they will. Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw the bars full in Wisconsin.
Take us through if a ranking from most restrictive to least restrictive of Pasadena, LA County, LA City.
Wow. Right now, Pasadena is the least restrictive because LA City, Garcetti has made some blanket statements about large-scale events not coming back this year.
Right.
And professional sports and those things. And now a lot of sports teams are gearing up to play in other places and get back going. Pasadena has been open, has made no statements on, hey, we're definitely not going to have the Rose Parade this year. The tournament's going to have to figure those things out. And college football is going to have to figure out UCLA. So they're the least restrictive. So I think LA City would be the most. I think LA County is very close second. And I think LA County is in kind of disarray right now with Ferrer's statement that it was going to, the order would stay through July.
Right.
With some of the restrictions being eased along the way. I don't know what that even means. Hampton has had a good point about this, and this is something to think about. If you can go into Target and Trader Joe's, then, and those places are open, what else could we safely open?
Right.
And so I think we have to start looking at it that way. By no means am I saying we need to open movie theaters and dining in locations and bars and things like that, because we have to figure those things out. But like I said, we are probably at the beginning of the middle of this. We are the least restrictive. We're not giving tickets at the Rose Bowl loop. But, there's staff down there now telling people to obey the rules. Kind of thing.
So my question about the Rose Parade, actually,
is
they make most of their money from television rights, right?
That's right.
So they could do what, Major League Baseball is considering doing if they wanted to. They could have a Rose Parade without the, benches and all of that. They could have social distancing and, sanitation making the floats.
Right.
Not easy, but they could, because some manufacturing is opening up. So that could happen.
I think it would be kind of interesting for the Rose Parade if they went and got a bunch of old Model Ts and did it like they used to do it.
Like they did it in the beginning,
Yeah, and have some horses go down with some flowers on them.
Yeah.
If they do it on an empty Colorado Boulevard, I will wake up early and just be the only guy standing there just so I can stand there and clap for them. Because I think that would be an interesting experience and an interesting endeavor on their part. But they say they will make a decision late June, early July. But based on the quote I read, and when we talked to them, they plan on doing something. I just don't know what something means and what that will be.
Yeah.
But I think you do have a good point.
I want to veer off for a second, only because we didn't have you last week.
That's right.
We were with James Farr, who did a very capable job, I might say.
I thought it was a great show.
So thank you, James. But it was great to have him with us. But I wanted to talk to you because I know why you weren't with us. And you weren't with us because there was an urgent story to deal with, which was an officer-involved shooting.
That's
Do you
right.
have more information on that shooting that you can share with us?
Well, the suspect's name is Lloyd Nelson Jr., the victim. Let's put it that way. From what I understand, he got out of his car armed and began firing at police. And police opened fire, and we know the result now. Now, the big thing about this case has been, as of earlier this week, they couldn't even connect this guy to anywhere. They couldn't find a point of residence for him at all. So they're still trying to figure out who he is. I'm sure they've probably gotten more information now, but Pasadena now, I have my guys query the department yesterday for information on, okay, what do we know about this guy now? Who is he? Where is he from? And we haven't gotten a response, which means they probably have gotten a little bit more information than they're willing to share. They'll probably give us something over the weekend about it. But the sad part in all this, Barry, is when this started and we saw almost no traffic on the freeways and almost nobody on the streets, crime plummeted. Pasadena has now seen a 30% increase in violent crime.
Why? I know, and I don't understand.
I don't know. And
no one's on the street. So what kind of crime is it?
Well, there have been some robberies.
Is it gang on gang, or what is it?
No, there have been some gun robberies on the streets. I mean, I don't know, and I don't want to psychoanalyze anybody, but I guess the people with the issues, with all the aggression, if you're staying home and then you start going out, maybe all that aggression is going to come out somewhere.
And they probably figure they wear masks anyway, so.
Yeah, I've got a mask, you've got a mask, now they're looking for a guy in a mask.
Yeah, right. We're all people in masks now, so you can't go to the police and say, he was wearing a mask. So that's not going to narrow it down.
How about you? Are you ready to go back out and start going to things? And
not at all. Not even close.
Neither. Me either.
Not even close.
I think the majority are where we are.
I am ready to. Gail was talking about a concept. I don't know if she read it or made it up, but Gail was talking about a concept of bubbles.
Bubbles?
Bubbles. And what you do is you can bring a few friends who you trust into your home.
Okay.
You can have socially distanced takeout.
Okay.
And watch a socially distanced movie or something, right? And that's what she was kind of talking about as a way to kind of dip your toe in without going out among strangers, because we're just not ready to do that. I mean, how do we know what anybody else is doing? We don't. We just have no idea. And probably the adventure for that will be on the July 4th weekend.
I agree.
When we gather around our television and turn on Disney Plus, I think you know this story, or maybe not, and watch a recorded, full-length, original cast version of Hamilton. Because it is going to be streaming on Disney Plus.
Wow. Really?
They recorded it 4 years ago, shortly after they opened on Broadway at the Richard Rogers Theater. No, actually, they recorded it a year after they opened on Broadway because everyone was starting to leave. So before they left, they took 3 days and they recorded Hamilton with the original cast, Lin-Manuel and Leslie Odom and Vivian Diggs.
Okay.
And that is going to be available on Disney Plus as of July 3rd.
And I haven't used my
we're
Disney
saying we can't have a lot of people, but maybe 4, 5 people or something to come over and watch that. So that's something to look forward to, guys. If you have Disney Plus.
I agree.
You don't have to pay another dime for it. Just have to have Disney Plus. And
you know what?
If you have kids, you probably have Disney Plus.
You know what you should do, Barry? You should get the Parsons Knowles, get a couple of the actors together. See, a lot of these people doing like lawn performances.
I know. And but the problem is, again, we don't know who in the cast is being observant and who isn't being observant. We just don't know, right?
Good point.
And some people are more diligent than other people.
I agree.
So that's the trick there. Although what we are doing, a little plug here, what we are doing is something called Radio Theater of the Air, and we're taking some of the adaptations and doing them on podcast.
Really? What's
that will be happening soon, and that'll probably be happening within the next month.
I'd like to check that out, so please keep us up to date, man.
Absolutely.
I'm editing a short film I shot.
Yeah, you should put it. Have you put it on YouTube?
I have not. I just got the sound treated. About 2 days ago.
Okay.
So now the sound is done, so I'm just going to go back and I have to make a couple of trims here and there, and I'm putting it on YouTube.
We'll look forward to it. That's it for us, folks.
All right,
we're done. Great to see you. See you next week. I'm Barry Gordon,
and I'm Andre Coleman.
Yes, he is. And this is NewsRap live at 5.
Still at home.
Stay healthy.
All
right.
Bye.